Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football, maybe exclusively about women's football, depending on the show. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us. We do this every single week, sometimes twice a week. This is one of those twice a week kind of weeks. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Links to Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, all available in the show notes of this episode. I am your host, Dino DeCespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, my MVP, you might say, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I appreciate that, buddy. I could never. I mean, we at worst, this will have to be an Atlanta Hawks. All 5 players in the lineup are the player of the month situation. I couldn't possibly take MVP from you, but I appreciate the kind words nonetheless. I'm feeling fantastic. Oh, there he is.
As am I.
Let's go. Let's talk about, I mean, what an episode. We're going to talk about MVP of the league 13 weeks into the season. I mean, you don't get much better than that in terms of just sports radio hackery, but that's what makes it so fun.
26th of the way through this NWSL season, which reduces to, channel my inner men in blazers here, one half.
There it is.
50% of the way through. Perfect time to talk MVP. We asked Leanne Sanderson this last week who she had as her MVP. I kind of do this thing. I do the same thing that I do at restaurants. I always ask, hey, well, what's the best dish? The server will undoubtedly name 2 or 3 dishes. I always just pick the first one that they said of the 2 or 3.
Like that.
I just tune out the second and the third. There is a hierarchy to life. There is a hierarchy to how people answer questions. Go back and listen to that episode if you want to hear who Leanne had as her MVP. In this episode, though, your boys are going to go 5-1. We're going to do a whole MVP ballot. And NWSL powers that be, you let us know. Get in the DMs. Get us our ballots. This is basically our audition for those ballots. So we hope that you like what you see.
Mm-hmm.
No shenanigans here. No chicanery. No psych outs. Grant and I, we kind of ironed this out beforehand. He's going to go first. No problem at all. Kind of double dipping. We don't have to have an individual ballot. You know, we can have players on both ballots. No problem. We're going to talk the whole thing out. And hopefully by the end of it, we will have our show's MVP favorite for this season.
That psych out Dino's referring to was from our UEFA Women's Champions League favorite 11s draft, where Dino had successfully pulled the wool over my eyes and then surprised me by giving me the number 1 overall pick in the draft. I've seen those results on people voting for who they think whose team would win. And I just want to say it's a miscarriage of justice that I'm just getting destroyed in that poll. Destroyed.
Filleted.
I mean, look, I don't want to derail the show too much. It shouldn't be that lopsided. I have a really good team. Respect the creativity of the lineup I put on the field. I got a lot of good players who could play in those spots. I digress.
You know what, man? I don't think people really listened to the end of the episode where they got to hear about your formation talk. That really might have just swung the whole thing to the point you're speaking of. Your boy got it done. 68% of the vote for me, 32% for Grant on our UWCL favorite 11. The psych out, pulling the wool over your eyes, not my finest moment, but definitely top 5. Yeah, like I said, no chicanery this week. You're gonna kick us off with your number 5 pick on your MVP ballot. And we'll just kind of knock through. This is going to be more of a team effort, no competition, no competitive vibes here. This is all just one squad, no I-in team. Let's kick it off.
You did what you had to do to win, buddy. I accept the results of the election. Everybody listen to me when I say this. I accept the results. I'm not going to claim anything was rigged. It is what it is. I don't like it, but I accept it. All right, moving on. Number 5 on my MVP ballot, Bia. I'm going to start with Bia Zaneratto from the Kansas City Current. She has 5 goals. That's tied for 5th in the league. She has 4 assists. That's tied for 4th in the league. Her 9 goals plus assists. That's good for tied for 5th. She has 3.5 expected assisted goals. That's good for 4th in the league. Her goals scored minus expected goals. So basically how much she's actually producing subtracted from the chances that XG is calculated. She's at 3.3. That's top of the league.
Let's go.
She has just a scoring arsenal in her own individual offense that she's just able to finish chances. She has 25 key passes. That's fourth in the league. Now, she hasn't played a lot of minutes, though. She had she had some time off. I think she's played 9 of the 13 available matches. One of those appearances, though, she was only 10 minutes. I think she has 2 matches in which she only played for 45 minutes in each of those. So she's at 560 total minutes out of what we're probably looking at around like 1,000, 1,100-ish available minutes. If you look at her shot creating actions per 90, she's at 5.79 per 90. Good for second in the league. She has 7 goal-creating actions. That's 6th in the league.
Wow.
And her goal-creating actions per 90 is at 1.13, good for 3rd in the league. I know she hasn't played that much time. I just think she deserves some recognition as just the clear second gun in the arsenal that Kansas City current has in that prolific offense.
I agree with that. I know we said we're going to do top 5, but I listed all the way out to 7, 8, 9, 10. I had 11. I had 11 on my not so short list. I'd be a 7th on mine. Incredible offensive player on what is very clearly the league's best offense.
Yep.
Knocked her down a little bit just with regards to the minutes played.
Sure.
And I think one of the caveats for this exercise was if we're casting our ballots today, where are we at? Had the minutes, kind of ticked up a little bit, or the matches played ticked up a little bit, she would definitely be right there. Incredible player. And like I said, that she's a key part of that offense. She was in my top 7. You've got her at 5. 5th on my MVP ballot. I really struggled with this one. And it's so funny that these two players basically went head to head. And I think like over the course of this match, I kind of was flip-flopping 5 and 6. I've got Croix Bethune 5, and I've got Naomi Girma 6.
Okay.
Now, obviously the Croix Bethune, again, flair for the dramatic, gets it done right at the death, like just as she do. On Girma, sort of. Yeah. That kind of leapfrogged her. Naomi Girma has been tremendous, leading the league in pass completion. She's basically automatic.
Yep.
She knows how to kickstart things offensively, defensively. She's a monster. Just so difficult to get past. I think her initiating of things offensively once the ball's won back is so sorely needed. Her to McCaskill. I think McCaskill has also been really, really good.
Awesome.
For San Diego. Girma definitely deserves a shout. She was like 5A, 5B. But Croix Bethune, man. I mean, the great Santana Moss once said, big-time players step up in big games. Carroll City's own, Miami Garden's own.
Let's go.
Miami Hurricane. I once, gave him that work on the basketball court, but he's a football player. What are you going to do? But he's absolutely right. And I think Croix Bethune is that to a T. Big games, big moments. She steps up massive. We talked about her a ton on our last episode with regard to what she did against San Diego. She's just a beast. I mean, she's clearly the most clutch player in the league. Like, I think full stop.
Good take.
Like, last 5 minutes, last 10 minutes, there's nobody else you want with the ball at her feet. She's second in goals created. Second, not amongst rookies, amongst everybody. Mm-hmm. And she leads the entire NWSL with 7 assists. Again, this is a rookie in her first season. Croix Bethune, absolutely on my MVP ballot as my number 5.
Well, buddy, you better get ready to go again because we have our first overlap because I have Croix Bethune at number 4. I think she's been that great. She has 20 passes into the penalty area. That's tied for first in the league. Like you mentioned, 5 goals, 7 assists. She's number 1 in through balls. She's number 4 in expected assists. She has 51 shot creating actions, second in the league.
Oh my God.
She's drawn 20 fouls. That's tied for 7th in the league. We're talking an offensive hub in her rookie season, halfway through her rookie season. She's one of the best players in the league immediately.
100%. I mean, there was some talk this season about when she reaches her prime, she might be the Spirit's best player. And we're almost there, or we're there. We'll see.
Who'd have thunk it?
Who would have thunk it? I love that we got our first overlap nice and early in the proceedings. How about that? Love when the ITC squad's on the same page here. Number 4 on my ballot, Mallory Swanson.
Okay.
Now, does she have the big gaudy numbers? She doesn't. We talked on our last episode about Chicago's kind of like, the thinness of that roster. Yep. You have Staub, you have Nair, you have Swanson, you have your cornerstones. It would be great if this team was deeper. It would be great if this team had more moves to go to over the course of a match. But even with that said, right in the mix, where are they? 6th on the table, firmly in playoff contention, not too far off from some of the big dogs. 4 goals, 3 assists in 12 matches. Now, this is my favorite. In the match that Mallory Swanson didn't appear, a 1-0 loss at home to lowly Angel City. The Red Stars lost the possession battle, the pass accuracy matchup, and only managed a single shot on target. Then you see what Swanson did standing up to the KC team. Awesome player. On more than one occasion, asked myself, is Mallory Swanson better at attacking than anybody else is at anything else in the league? Because, I mean, I think when she's on and like that goal that she had this weekend against KC, just like out of nothing, like literally out of nothing. And that's what you get with Swanson. I mean, when we talk about what is the MVP, you look at this Red Stars team with Swanson, without Swanson, you could make the case it's the biggest delta. If you just pull one player out of the mix, run the simulation, and see what happens, in both of those scenarios, I think she's just that important to the Chicago team.
That's a great point. And that gets to the age-old sports radio, sports writer talk question of what are your criteria for MVP? Is it, well, they have to be on a winner. They have to be the best player in the league. I'm just going the best player in this season, and that's it, and that's all I'm considering, or pound for pound best player, whatever, however you want to frame it. Or is it, I'm looking at the word literally most valuable, and I'm judging if I take that player from that team, are they one of the 4 worst teams in the league maybe? In my view, when I look at it, I try to consider all those things. I try to make it kind of a bit of a mosaic of all those pieces of kind of what's important. I think you're spot on with Swanson. If you take her off and you put a replacement level forward on the squad, they're probably not where they are right now on the table. To your earlier point, Swanson, she just has the ability to carry the ball 40 yards, 50 yards, and score at the end of it. Like, she doesn't run herself into trouble a lot. Like, she runs with the ball and then knows when to dish or knows when to fire. I mean, she's an incredible player. She was a difficult one. She did not make my 5, but she was right on the periphery.
We've hit on your 5 and your 4. Why don't we go to your number 3?
So I think I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball here, considering how I often talk about this player. But I think some of the factors that you had mentioned about Bia are going to have played a role in kind of what I'm looking at here. Let's discuss the queen of the Copper Queens herself. I have Barbra Banda 3rd on my MVP list if the season ended today. Now, let me make a case. She's played 559 minutes out of a possible, we're talking like 1,100 plus minutes, I believe. And so, yeah, I have Bia and her 560 minutes played, almost identical to Banda. I have Bia at 5, Bethune at 4. Bethune has played 982 minutes and has those gaudy numbers that we talked about. I just think if the season ended today, and as many times I am on the record on this podcast, I've spoken the words into a microphone multiple times, Banda is the best player in the league. When we talk about that mosaic of factors that I have to consider when naming the MVP, I just don't think 600 minutes is enough minutes to be the MVP. If the season ended today, do I think she could make up that gulf and then some through the final 13 matches of the year? Of course I do. Let me pass it to you for initial reaction before I get into all the numbers to discuss why.
Well, buddy, I also have Banda 3rd.
Look at us.
Yeah. I mean, I this is funny, but I think we're on the same page here.
Okay.
I want to throw some fun numbers here at you.
Let's go.
Obviously, we know the top line numbers, 8 goals, 3 assists, and 9 matches played. How about this? In those 9 matches, 7 wins and 2 draws. That's taking 23 of a possible 27 points from those 9 matches. 23 points just from the 9 matches that Banda's played in would be good for 5th in the league.
That's great. That's great.
You got to give her props. She's super productive. I think she's cooled off a little bit. We talked a little bit earlier this week about maybe Orlando needing more consistency, not necessarily from one player, but from whoever the number 2 is in that matchup. Just to kind of like take a little bit of the pressure off Banda. Obviously, she's completely unguardable. The numbers show it. But I think we're starting to see defenses shade some things her way, make it a little bit tougher. But you can't argue with the impact. She's been unbelievable. The way she came into the league on an absolute tear is going to be something that like we're gonna remember for a very, very long time. But I think 3 is the right place to have her on the ballot.
Excellent. Okay, good to see that we're aligned. I mean, so like I mentioned with Bia, because I wanted to contextualize some of her numbers a little bit, I know you always do this kind of stuff too. She has 1.29 goals per 90. That's first in the league by a lot. She has 5.2 XG created. That's fourth in the league. Her XG per 90 is 0.84. That's first in the league. She has 33 shots. That's fourth in the league. Her shots on target percentage is 63.3. That's good for seventh in the league.
Crazy.
Her goals minus XG is she's plus 2.8. That's second. Third in goal creating actions. She's first in goal creating actions per 90. She has 33 progressive carries. That's good for eighth in the league. And she has 31 carries into the penalty area. That's third in the league. And that number, that 31 carries into the penalty area, that's a raw number. That's not any kind of by 90. And she has that few of minutes. And she's third in the league at taking the ball into the penalty area. I mean, she's just I sometimes get a little hesitant because some of our pals over in England, they refer to a player, and Leanne used the term before, they refer to a player who can't be guarded as unplayable, which I think in American parlance, it's just like, wait, hold on, that's actually an insult the way Americans talk about sports. But to borrow that terminology, she's unplayable. Like defenders, you can't hold her. She's too fast. She's too strong. She's too smart. She's too skilled.
Yeah, just gotta hope she misses, which is kind of what we've seen.
Yeah.
And all of those raw stats that you rattled off again in just 9 matches played. In that first match, I think she played 15 minutes or something. Yeah, barely saw the field.
That's a good point.
Just enough to kind of break a little bit of a sweat. So it's really 8+ appearances we're talking about here.
Yeah.
To rack up that massive resume. I'm gonna go to my number 2 pick on my MVP ballot. I have a sinking fear that we've got the same 1-2. Second on my ballot, Temwa Chawinga.
Nice.
Got to do it. She's sitting at 13 matches played, undefeated on the season, 8 wins, 5 draws for both of those sides, the Orlando Pride and the Kansas City Current. Got to give her credit for that. And she just opens things up with her speed and quickness, Chawinga does. And just her overall offensive bag. I mean, in this last match against San Diego, on a play that she scores on, she creates extra space with a juke that's essentially faking a pass.
Yep.
So now, as a defense, you're afraid of Chawinga's passing and her distributing, and you're talking about one of the most dangerous goal scorers in the entire league. Once she's got you in that kind of headspace, you're just absolutely cooked. I mean, she's so dangerous, so willing to distribute the ball, such a lethal striker. I just continue to be befuddled when you see her in the penalty area with a shit ton of space. Just how does she do that? Where she's just in a dangerous spot and there's just a bubble of 5 yards where just nobody's on her. It's through her creativity. It's through her movement. It's through her IQ. And then when the ball's at her feet, it's a wrap.
And all those reasons, my good man, is why if the season ended today, she would be my MVP.
Oh, let's go.
I have a feeling we're probably inverted here. 8 goals, tied for second in the league. 4 assists, tied for fourth. She's number 2, obviously, in goals plus assists. 9.0 XG. That's good for first in the league.
Jesus.
To your point about her having the ball in dangerous areas, she has 58 progressive carries. That's first in the league. She has 40 carries into the penalty area. That's first in the league. She has 116 progressive passes received. That's number 1 in the league also. By the way, number 2 in the league has 23 fewer than Chawinga has. So I know you love a big gulf between 1 and 2.
Massive.
That's where she is. And for what it's worth, Chawinga, number 6 in minutes as of the time this was recorded. I'm not sure if FB Ref was counting this past match. I'm not sure how quickly it updates. But she was already at 1,083 minutes.
Amazing.
So top 10 in the league. And also, not for nothing, 24 blocks
Let's
I'd love
go.
to talk about Trinity Rodman's ability to get back and contribute on the defensive end. 24 blocks is tied for third in the NWSL. And we're talking about
Wow.
one of the most dangerous scoring threats in the league. I mean, what's not to love about Temwa Chawinga? The motor, the skill, the smarts. Like you're saying, people have to be afraid of her passing, and she just so happens to be one of the most devastating scorers in the league. If they said no more matches after the 13th, my first reaction, I'm very sad. My second reaction, give Chawinga the MVP.
Wow. I love that. I mean, defensively, I'm not sure I totally considered some of those stats that you rattled off defensively, but when you play it back, that is how she plays.
Yep.
She's so fast, much like Trinity Rodman. She could mix it up defensively. She try to win balls back, and she can make up all that space and get all the way out to the cusp of being offsides. Once the possession flips back the other way, she's just incredible to watch. We talked about when you were talking about Bia, an incredible offensive player on the best offense. Temwa Chawinga is the best offensive player on the best offense. It's not really just what she does on the ball.
Right.
It's the gravity, it's the space, it's the pressure she puts on you.
Yep.
She's creating space for Bia, for a DiBernardo, for a Debinha, for Cooper. Like, she's just manipulating all the chess pieces. It's interesting to see these new players come into the league. They spike violently, like they're just like incredible. Then there's a little bit of a lull as like the game plans start to adjust. And then these truly elite players then spike again when they make an adjustment to the adjustment. And I think we're not going to be done seeing Chawinga change and evolve in this league. And to your point, she may very well be raising the MVP trophy by the end of the season. If she keeps this up, I think she's got a ton more in her bag that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
And this KC side, you kind of can count on them to continue to like tinker offensively and like really find different spaces, find different areas, and continue to keep pressure on defenses. And I think things could be lining up for a Temwa Chawinga MVP for sure. She was second on my list. I'm guessing second on your list. Well, let's go to your second on your list. Who did you have in the number 2 spot?
All right, I'll do the intro for it. I got to think that we have it inverted. I have Sophia Smith, number 2 on my ballot.
Yep.
968 minutes played. She has 9 goals. That's first in the league. She has 6 assists. That's second in the league. She has 7 XG. It's second in the league behind Chawinga. She's third in non-penalty XG and non-penalty goals, despite having 2 penalty kick goals herself, because she's the pen taker for the Thorns. Mm-hmm. She has 52 shots. That's second in the league. She has 22 shots on target. That's second in the league. 22 key passes. That's 9th in the league. 50 shot creating actions. That's 3rd in the league. 11 goal creating actions. That's 2nd in the league. She is a 2-time MVP for a reason. She's one of the best strikers in the world. She has 20 fouls drawn. That's 9th in the league.
Wow.
She is second to Chawinga. She has those 93 progressive passes received. Obviously 23 behind the 116 that Chawinga has. But still, everything that Sophia Smith has been doing lately, which you talked about it when we were doing a different show during the World Cup. And you talked about it when we started covering the NWSL this year, is that Sophia Smith has unlocked her passing ability, which shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I always think about, there was like a half of a season or something like that where Kobe Bryant was like passing the ball more. And everybody was like, oh, he can pass too. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm not really that surprised. Like, he's a genius. He's one of the best players who ever lived. Like, of course he can pass. I feel like Smith is doing some of that now, where it's, I'm seeing the passes, I'm trusting my teammates, I'm doing that, and then I'm using my amazing skill to score. I could see why she would be anybody's MVP. It's really kind of how you want to slice it. I'm eager to hear why you landed on her at number 1.
Yeah, so number 1 for me, Emily Sams from the Orlando. No, I'm just kidding. Sophie Smith. Sophie Smith is my number 1 MVP candidate, top of my ballot. I think it's the goal creation, man. I think you look at her 6 assists, good for second. I mean, like, in what world coming into the season, let's rewind back to the World Cup. In what world coming off the World Cup, coming into the season, would you say Sophie Smith is going to be top 2 in the league in assists? That would have been unfathomable to me.
Yeah.
I did this analysis last week. Over 3 years, 9 assists. This year already, she's got 6 assists in half a season. She had 9 assists career total. in 3 years. You talk about those couple MVPs, it wasn't for distributing. And this year, she's just cooking. We talked about her eye level, way raised, her vision, way utilized, 1.39 goal creations per 90. That's a goal and a half. Just you lace up your boots, it's a goal and a half, all attributed to Sophie Smith. So to me, she's my MVP. I would like kind of to see her be able to like carry this Portland side to like maybe a little bit more success. But again, we're still early. But I think just what she's been able to do on the field, and obviously she's out of the lineup against Seattle. They don't get on the board. Mm-hmm. I kind of made the same similar argument. Mal Swanson's way. She misses a match and they look like a completely different team. We got to see a little bit of that. Well, you got to see it up close covering the rain this past weekend. That no Sophie Smith definitely changes the geometry a little bit.
She is, and I appreciate, you know what, you jogged my memory. The Women's Game podcast with Sam Mewis, and then she sometimes has Lynn Williams, she sometimes has Becky Sauerbrunn. I think it was Sam Mewis and Becky Sauerbrunn said that Sophie Smith does not like being called Sophia, which I feel like broadcast should have corrected by now. I don't know if that's just inside information. Maybe maybe Mewis and Sauerbrunn were talking about by her friends. We are by no means friends of Sophie Smith, but I do want to call her the name that she prefers. So I think I always see Sophia and go to that. But yeah, I'm gonna stick to that. We'll go Sophie Smith. And so I'm glad you mentioned it because obviously I was at the Cascadia Derby this weekend, and this recording was top of mind that, you know, we're going to be talking about our MVP ballots. And I was very curious talking about, again, I'm going to go back to that mosaic of how you choose who the most valuable player in the league is. You know, Christine Sinclair is a legend. She's also 41 years old, and, you know, she's flanked by Janine Becky. There's something worth saying that Sam Coffey and Olivia Moultrie weren't in the lineup, but when you're trying to pass forward to a 41-year-old forward instead of Sophia Smith, even with Sinclair being the all-time leading scorer in the history of the sport at the national team level, it's not the same because Sophia Smith is arguably the best striker in the game. And so to your point of like, well, what happens if you take this player off the squad? How valuable are they? Mm-hmm. There was a clear difference in the value of what Sophie Smith brings to the Thorns. They were not nearly as dangerous of an attack, and that's why a team that they probably still felt okay about being able to beat with not as many of their good players in. That's why they were only able to scratch out a draw, is because some of those giveaways that the Reign were making in their half, they're 100% goals if they fall to Sophie Smith's right foot.
I definitely believe that. She's top of my ballot, like we mentioned, NWSL Powers That Be. We'll keep an eye out for our mailboxes, sure. Both physical and digital. You just let us know.
We watch the games.
Give us our deadlines. We watch the games, bro. Check the tapes. You already know what time it is. Now, we hit our 5 through 1. Let's skip ahead to a little bit of extra time and hit the portion of the show that we like to call Let's Name Some Players.
Yes.
Who was an honorable mention, the most honorable of honorable mentions on your MVP ballot? Who did you have a hard time leaving off? Who needs to get a little shout out here?
Trinity Rodman was a tough one for me. I thought about, okay, can I have Rodman 5th, Bethune 4th? And then I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, well, B is so great, and KC is pretty much top of the table. I understand Spirit is right there with them, but I was like, maybe it makes sense to have B a 5 and Chawinga 1. Trinity Rodman, 3 goals, 4 assists, 5.2 expected assisted goals. That's first in the league. She's number 2 in expected assists. She has 15 shots on target. That's tied for 5th. She has 24 key passes. That's tied for 5th. She's tied for 5th in crosses into the penalty area. She's number 6 in shot creating actions. She's tied for 4th in goal creating actions. She's won 20 tackles. That's top 10. She has 22 blocks. That's tied for 5th. She has 30 take-ons. That's the best in the league. She's number 5 in progressive carrying distance. She's number 2 in progressive carries. She's number 4 in progressive carries received. And real quick, Trinity Rodman, 77.3% aerial challenges won. Good for 5th in the league. And she has 27 fouls drawn. That's good for 2nd in the league. this has been the week. If you check out our other episode, this has been a week of respecting and recognizing the game that Trinity Rodman has as a superstar player in this league. It hurt to leave her off my MVP ballot.
I agree with that. I mean, let me see. I had 7, 8. She came in 9th on my ballot.
Oh, okay.
I mentioned it. I mean, explosive, nasty competitor. Pretty much anywhere on the field, she's ready to take anybody on anytime. She's an elite athlete. Her striking is right there. Talk about like top 10-ish in the league, I would say. She sets the tone. She's just somebody that you have to game plan for. And that Spirit team is cooking. I mean, we talked about it this past weekend. Neutral field, kind of any given day. I think this team can give pretty much any team major problems, and it kind of starts with Trinity Rodman. I mean, I think one of the first places that you have to be like, okay, Rodman can really hurt us. So it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing there defensively? Kind of everything else sort of slots in after that. She's just an incredible player. Now I've gone through 1 through 7 and 9. So in my 8th spot, Leanne Sanderson brought her up on our most recent MVP conversation, Vanessa DiBernardo.
Yes.
We've talked about this KC Current team. She threatens from pretty much anywhere on the pitch. I mean, she's just effective box to box, super smart, super crafty, great playmaker. She's just involved in a lot of stuff that KC does. Like she just is. She's just so great at the simple skill of moving the ball along to where it's supposed to go. She's just really great at that. She's also scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly productive player. Definitely deserves a shout out. Shout out Vanessa DiBernardo.
I'm right there with you. I had her 8th. She's tied for 8th in shot creating actions. She's tied for 7th in goal creating actions. 4 goals, tied for 8th. 5 assists, that's 3rd in the league. 26 key passes, that's number 3 in the league.
Love a key pass.
Love a good key pass. You need them. I feel like she is almost, and not like she's overlooked, but I don't know. I mean, maybe she's shading toward overlooked. I think she might be a little bit of a football hipster pick in this kind of like gaudy Kansas City Current offense. So I'm going to lean into the we watch the games, bro. Watching from the press box, DiBernardo, she starts off and she's on the left wing playing left midfield. And then like after a few minutes, all of a sudden, here she is way up high on the right wing. And then a couple minutes later, she's serving in passes, playing them out wide because now she's in the middle. And after that match, I had asked Sophia Huerta about, like, what do you do when you have a lethal player like that and she's just not staying on one side of the field? And she was just like, we had to have a plan. You just pass her off, like in basketball, like, hey, she's going over there. She's going over there. Like, you just have to know where she is.
Wow.
And I feel like I know I have seen some people on the women's football Twitter, the WOSO Twitter that we are involved in, is that I think a lot of people probably think that she deserves a lot more credit for making that whole engine run on the league's most elite offense.
When you have an offense kind of like that's humming like that, generally it's because you have great players making the right decisions quickly.
Yeah.
DiBernardo's fast decision-making, ability to execute, ability to kind of keep the ball moving. And then you have Bia, you have Temwa Chawinga, Cooper to a lesser extent. You want to you want to keep the ball moving. You want to keep the defenders chasing. Mm-hmm. And she's so good at that. And she's so crisp in her like passing and her decision. Like everything is just exactly what you would want from a player in that position. And then to your point, she kind of has no position. She's just wherever she needs, wherever the play requires her to go, she's happy to kind of take that space on the field and just kind of keep that engine humming.
If you want to mentally prepare yourself for a bit of an old man NFL reference, I know you'll appreciate this. There have been several great offenses since then, but like the greatest show on turf, St. Louis Rams, where everybody was like, wow, Kurt Warner's really great. Marshall Faulk, he's definitely going to the Hall of Fame. Isaac Bruce is awesome. Oh, by the way, there's this younger guy named Torrey Holt. He's super good. And Azahir Hakeem is really fast and like does his thing. Let's name some guys. It's just like, I don't know where DiBernardo is in there because I don't want to disrespect her. But if Chawinga is Marshall Faulk, I don't know. Is Bia Isaac Bruce? Is DiBernardo Kurt Warner, who's still a Hall of Famer, but to your point, is keeping the ball moving and being like, I know I got players out here. I'm going to do exactly what I got to do and distribute. I feel like Holt was on that team. I've screwed up NFL references before on this podcast. He was on that team?
Real quick, shout out to great friend of the pod, great Twitter friend of the pod for sure, at Iron Ghazi Stan, who stepped in to correct your Jadeveon Clowney with his own Mario Williams correction. These are our watchers and our listeners, and we appreciate them.
I appreciate the correction, Iron Ghazi Stan. I had to sheepishly chime in on Twitter back and be like, oh boy, I'm starting to do the thing where I'm mixing up draft years. Clowney and Williams are drafted damn near 10 years apart. But I just want to say, I'm not taking accountability. I blame the Texans for being so shitty that they had so many number one overall picks and just kept taking D linemen, hoping to eventually get good. And all it had to take was them taking an Ohio State quarterback for them to finally have some hope. But that's another podcast, I think. And if I may, because I have to shout out Ohio State one more time, greatest show on turf, anchored by Orlando Pace, one of the greatest offensive linemen of all time. Never forget.
There you go. And maybe that's a DiBernardo, Orlando Pace, Hall of Famer.
Hell yeah.
So I had DiBernardo on my short list in the 8th spot. Anybody else that you had kind of lingering?
I had a few players lingering. I think you're going to mention one. I'm going to go slightly further down my list.
I got 2 more.
Okay. I think you're going to mention the other one I have, and you already mentioned Swanson. Let me just mention Ann-Katrin Berger.
One of my 2.
Really? Okay. Wow. All right. She's not going to win the MVP unless something really weird happens. But 4 clean sheets. Her clean sheet percentage is first in the league. She has an 87.5 save percentage. She has about half a goal against per 90. That's best in the league. This stat, which I was thrilled to look at and read about. So she is a plus 5.3 in what is called post-shot XG minus goals allowed. So on the quality of the shot, and the way the expected goals metric works, like, is this thing going to be a goal? Minus her actual goals allowed. She's plus 5.3. Wow. So she is saving shots that should probably be goals. That is number 1 in the league as well. That metric is created by Opta Stats, but it is housed on Football Reference, the obviously the stats that Dino and I use so much. I just want to also point this out, and I understand football is an 11-player game. You have a lot of players on the pitch at one time. Going back to the NFL, I am somewhat against the quarterback wins stat. I think it is a little silly when you have that many players on the field. In this case, you have 11 players on the pitch. I do just want to point out that since Berger joined the squad, they are 6 wins, 2 draws, and 0 losses. They had 2 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses when they started the season without her. And I don't even think they had necessarily bad goalkeeper play during that early stretch. I think they were just kind of struggling to score. But Ann-Katrin Berger has just been fantastic. And this is really just a wonderful second act to her career after being a legend at Chelsea Football Club.
Totally. I mean, these are video game numbers for sure. Half a goal per 90 is insane. And I mentioned it over the weekend. In the matches where she's not clean sheeting you, it's 1 goal, one goal, 1 goal, 1 goal.
Yeah.
4 goals in 8 matches, 6 wins in those 8 matches, 2 draws. I mean, imagine what it's like having Berger back there, just knowing, oh, okay, we can be a little bit aggressive. Mm-hmm. And then defensively, that whole Gotham backline is filled with players that are happy to move the ball forward, highlighted by another player that made my roughly my top 10, top 11, Jenna Neiswanger. Let's fucking go. Oh, before I jump to conclusions, is that who we were talking about here?
Yeah, that's who I expected you to have on this list.
Let's go. So obviously she plays at that left back spot. I mean, defensively, she's not a world beater, but she is very, very active, very pesky. She's kind of in the mix. She knows where to be. And then offensively, she's essentially from that Basha school of like crossing, picking out players, driving the ball forward from her position, and just being an absolute menace. The perfect type of player for that talented roster that Gotham has, to just kind of be a distributor up that left-hand side and be a creator, defense into offense. And they're winning and they're handling teams. And she's just one of those players that's like involved in everything. It's just impossible not to notice when she's on the pitch.
100% agree. Couldn't co-sign it harder. I mean, she is, let's take a look here, 15 passes into the penalty area. That's tied for 7th. She has 10 crosses into the penalty area. That's 1st in the league. She has 57 crosses in total. That's tied for 6th. She has 32 tackles, which is tied for 8th. 21 tackles won. That's tied for 6th. Even aside from the numbers, do you know ball? She's great. She's an offensive hub. Like, you talk about the Basha school, you're spot on with that. She's got some Olga in her game. Like, that Carmona style of like, I will be the offensive hub, and I'll play those crosses in. I could play through the middle if I feel like it, if the situation dictates it. She is a genius passer. We talked about it in the U.S. Women's National Team shows that we've done. I think there is a world that exists where you look at that back line and you say, Girma, Sharpie, no doubt that's a done deal. That's sealed. I think in a lot of situations, and you were really astute with this, is that there might be some situations where you say, okay, we might need a little more physical defense back there. But I think Niswanger is coming very close to being like, maybe it doesn't matter what the matchup is because we want to have that look of somebody who can create offense from defense. And like you said, she's pesky. She can tackle. She's not a fouling machine. She's not a yellow card machine. She keeps her head about her. She keeps her wits about her. I think there's a world that exists where you look and say, is she the 5th most important player on the U.S. Women's National Team? On, one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the world? And is she the 2nd or 3rd most important player on a team that's going to challenge to win the Shield or win the NWSL Cup?
I think I agree with both of those points. When you look at this U.S. Women's National Team as well, I think bringing in, obviously Sonnet's firmly in the mix there. We talked about Girma. We talked about Davidson. Sam Staub, I think, is kind of like sneakily the perfect player that kind of balances things out. And I think we saw it in those 2 Korea matches where Niswanger is just way, to your point, when the situation calls for it, she's going to take that space.
100%.
And I think I agree with you. I think her spot firmly cemented. There's no world where she's not on the 18.
Can't be. It'd be crazy.
Hard to imagine a world where she's not starting most of these Olympic matches.
Yes. I think the last person I want to name is Ouleymata Sarr. We've alluded to her and basically the big 3 that they have over in Washington, D.C. Sarr has 6 goals. That's good for 4th in the league, 2 assists. She has a 6.9 XG created. That's number 3 in the league. 15 shots on target. That's tied for 5th. And she's tied for 7th in goal creating actions. She's a pure striker, just a goal-scoring threat from pretty much anywhere on the field. Good size, good speed. Is always, it feels like, and this is a huge win when you have a person who's able to serve in crosses like Trinity Rodman, and then what appears to be a good football decision-making computer in Croix Bethune. But Sarr always seems to be intelligently placed on the field. She knows where to be to then get to her spots to rip shots on goal. And so I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention Ouleymata Sarr, at least in the MVP combo.
Absolutely. I mean, she's very productive. Cooled off a little bit after a crazy hot start.
Right.
But, midway through the NWSL season, I think we've seen defenses adjust. And I think now if more of the resources are more moving towards Bethune, moving towards Rodman, I think that could open things up big time for Ouley Sarr. And she's just that kind of player. She was on my original longer short list earlier in the week, productivity-wise, scoring-wise. I mean, she's right there. And she's not that far off of sort of playing her way into top 3, top 4, top 5 between now and the end of the season. Again, in WSL powers that be. You already know what time it is. DMs are open. Let us know.
Oh, yeah.
All right, man. We covered a lot of players. We went 1 through 5. We named some players, hit some honorable mentions. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think that's it. I mean, Kailen Sheridan is way up there with a lot of clean sheets, clean sheet percentage. I think she is one of those players that you might be able to look at. I think we often just kind of casually say Kailen Sheridan is the best keeper in the league. Ann-Katrin Berger has given her a run for her money, but she is an interesting case study in where would the Wave be if you had a replacement level keeper instead of the best keeper in the league. And I think it would be a dicey proposition for the Wave. So she'll be my last, but other than that, I think we covered it.
Love it. All right, man. I think we did it. Shout out to Kailen Sheridan for sure. Big game player as well. This has been another episode of Into the Channel. Thank you for watching, listening, liking, subscribing, following. Without you, there really is no show, no channel to go into. So thank you for rocking with us. And let us know how you think we did. Who do we miss? Who do we forget in our ballot? Who did we totally misrank? You let us know. We always appreciate all of you chiming in. And if you're an OG, thank you for continuing to rock with us. Very much appreciate it. And remember, like if you liked, and subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Links to all of our socials, every single one in our show notes. Be sure to check those out. And a big thank you to my co-host, not just in the first spot, not in the second spot. He's the Dylon. He's the MVP of this show. I'm not going to hear anything else on this matter. Mr. Grand Angle, thank you for being my co-host. And, just always being down to name some players, create some lists. I appreciate you, man.
Likewise, buddy. I do feel like this is a situation. Let's name some guys, maybe not in the media space or maybe not in just general. Are we a Thunder and Lightning, Tiki Barber and Ron Dane situation? Like, I don't know, like maybe there's a better Thunder and Lightning. Maybe we're Bron and Wade throwing up the no-look alley-oop and just having an iconic moment. Who knows? Wouldn't want to host a show with anybody else. Appreciate you always setting me up. And yeah, to everybody who's watching the show and appreciating us, showing love in the comments, thank you. Go easy on our top 5 MVP ballots. Let me just say, this past week, a woman who has a third place medal in the World Cup said she watches our show. A woman who scored 100 goals in 2 fucking seasons said she watches our show because we see football in a similar way. You really can't tell us anything at this point, but we still welcome the comments. And on a serious note, yeah, thank you guys for always keeping it real with us and always holding us accountable, correcting us when we make silly mistakes like I am wont to do. And yes, we will see you after more NWSL matches, and we will talk to you guys very soon.
I hate to come over the top after this. That usually closes the show. But when you said Bron and Wade, I actually heard SK Bron. So I was like, oh, maybe, we're seeing you Gab said just Gene Jellin out here.
Yes. Let's go.
Just like doubling up here. So again, apologies for stepping on the salute.
No, never.
One last salute to kind of get us out of here.
Whatever the 1-2 combination is, it only happens because you guys are rocking with us. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.